What's up guys, Excalibur here and welcome back to Star Ocean Anamnesis. So the actual Valkyrie Profile collaboration has started now, like the really big one has started, and it's brought about a bunch of new stuff. So let's go through everything in order, starting with the thing that's all the way at the bottom, of course. So oh yeah, there's they changed some stuff, gave us some quality of life. So they changed the text of agility to evasion now, which is really cool. I've always wanted them to do that because now it actually makes sense. And they also increased the drop rate of accessories, and it's planned to happen after the first chapter of the current Valkyrie Profile event. So probably next week, I would imagine. So that's actually this is going to help out a lot of people trying to farm like stuff like Lunar Tier in the near event, and I think the current event also has some good accessories, so you can farm that a lot easier. So this is also very nice. And then we have the Temple of Darkness, so make sure to bring all of your dark characters. Phase in particular is actually very strong here because of his ability to like stun enemies, and he has like huge AoEs. He's very powerful, and there are also a bunch of dark weapons in the shop right now, so you could just run those on your other characters. And then we have Moment in History, Misery 2 and 3. So this is the Misery 2 for the last event that we got, and we got a new currency, the number of oh wait, never mind, it's called Scoop Data. So Scoop Data can be exchanged in a box draw that we have right now, and there are 4 boxes in the box draw, and this one actually contains some really good stuff for the first 3 boxes. So I recommend everybody unlocks at least those first 3, and then the 4th one you can do whatever you want with that one. And the accessory that they introduced is the Cat Scrunchie, which gives you anti-flinch when you're being targeted by the enemy, and it also increases critical hit chance by 15% when you're not targeted by the enemy. Looks like a pretty gimmicky accessory. Personally, I wouldn't run this because anti-flinch is very common, and critical hit chance is not really worth it compared to like some of the other accessories that we've got. But maybe you can use it on a sharpshooter. Then again, most sharpshooters already have crit chance, so not really sure if it could ever come in handy. Maybe in like public play or something. So here's the box draw. Very simple. You need about 150 scoop data to get all 3 of those boxes. So get the farming on that. And then we have the event achievements for completing Misery 2, Misery 3. So if you want the easy scoop data, you can just complete Misery 3 5 times. Or wait, no, I think you have to do it 8 times actually, because the event achievement doesn't unlock until you actually complete the previous one. So I think you need to complete it 8 times to get that. So that's pretty cool. And then the Gleaming Simulacrum, that's his name. He seems to be a lot stronger now because his paralysis is a lot more potent, which means you might have to bring some accessories that nullify paralysis. That could help, or you could also just fight from range because he is a lot easier when you're taking him down from range. And the Blood Valkyrie event is also rerunning. So this event first took place in August or September of last year. Don't really remember, but somewhere around that time frame. So you can collect Blood Valkyrie coins and Misery 2 coins, and you can exchange those in a shop. And for everybody who was present during the first time that the event ran, they also restocked some of the items like the weapon ticket and the character ticket, as well as the Slayer of Divine Beings. So about the Slayer of Divine Beings and the Shiny Rupture, the Slayer of Divine Beings imbues your attacks with light at limit break 4 and gives you AP cost reduction at limit break 5. It seems like a pretty decent weapon, but we have a free weapon in the one-handed sword coin exchange shop, which is the Clayham Soloise, which also imbues your attacks with light, and it has a way higher attack stat. So if you're looking for a light imbuement one-handed sword, I would recommend transmuting the Slayer into the Clayham Soloise, and Shiny Rupture, just transmute that into whatever you want because it's kind of bad. So for all the new players, make sure you grab the Limit Breaker, the 5-star weapon tickets, and the 5-star character ticket. Shouldn't be too difficult, as well as the Barrier Blaster. Don't forget about that. That's very important. And I think that about does it for all of this. Oh yeah, that's right, they got Awakenings. So I also have a moveset video out for Blood Valkyrie. It was very long ago, and it's probably a terrible video, but if you want to know the attacks of Blood Valkyrie, you should probably go check that out. And Blood Valkyrie also has like a certain state where she regens HP every 2 seconds, which effectively turns this into like a damage contest. But with the level of power that we have now, it should not be a problem. And then we have the actual collaboration event, Valkyrie Profile, the Purged Wizard, Chapter 1. So there's going to be more of this. And the event missions actually seem really cool because they're all voice acted. I've never played Valkyrie Profile, so I'm not really sure what's happening. But yeah, like I said, fully voice acted. Really freaking cool. So you can collect these magic crystals, and you can exchange them in another box draw, which I think it contains like almost exactly the same things as the other box draw that we currently have. So large limit breakers and AP seeds. So make sure you unlock at least the first 3 boxes. Yeah, it's right here. So yeah, unlock at least the first 3 boxes, and then box 4 you can farm that to your own leisure. So we also have some event weapons. The Bow of Fate Mistletoe, which increases killing thorn damage by 20%, gives you Repel +1, which makes you less likely to be targeted by enemies, and increases critical hit chance by 10% when you're standing at long range. This thing could be useful if you've got a bow user that imbues all of their attacks already with an element. Other than that, it doesn't really have a use, so I just recommend transmuting this thing. And then we have the Vessel of Truth Aetherlight, increases Heavenly Punishment, damage increases normal attack AP recovery by 30% when you're standing at short range, and increases damage dealt to humanoids by 10%. The damage dealt to humanoids is also kind of cool, like the previous bow with the killing thorn damage. Unfortunately, you also need to have a character that imbues their own attacks with an element to make use of that. Normal attack AP recovery plus 30% at short range. That doesn't really seem too good. Heavenly Punishment seems good though. So this one is made for Freya, and it's actually kind of decent for her. So if you're going to run Freya and you don't manage to pick up her Gacha Orb, and you don't have like any other good Gacha Orbs, then you can definitely run this. And then the Pure White Beret, which reduces in damage taken by 15% and increases HP by 5%. So that's a very decent accessory for tanking. So if you're running a defender and you're fighting an enemy that mostly uses int attacks, then you can definitely use that. Very nice. And then, aside from that, we have event achievements. One thing to keep in mind here is the Loki's Mind Fragment that you can see at the bottom, which you get from completing Misery 1 3 times, and you use it to unlock this mission right here, which unlocks some more stories. So if you're invested in the Valkyrie Profile stuff, then there you go, more story. Very cool. And oh yeah, there's something very interesting about this boss fight too. It's actually 2 bosses, Lizard and Blood Valkyrie at the same time. Lizard is kind of not like an actual boss enemy. I think his health might be less than that of Blood Valkyrie, but he is still like equally annoying as a boss. So that fight might be a little tough on auto. But I think that about does it for this Valkyrie Profile Collaboration Campaign. So all of these events, at least all of the Valkyrie Profile stuff, runs for 41 days until June 4th. So that's a lot of Valkyrie Profile, and we get a lot of stuff in like the shop as well. So we have the Valkyrie Profile item set, which costs 10,000 gems, and it contains all of this stuff. Personally, I don't think it's worth it, not even for new players, because 10,000 gems is a lot, and I wouldn't recommend spending that on only 2 large limit breakers, some AP seeds, and an ace ticket and a weapon ticket. Not really worth it. You might as well keep it for like actual character pulls. And then login bonus, always cool. And aside from that, we have some more achievements. These should all be very easy to complete, and there's actually something cool about this, because the that middle achievement, win 20 times in multiplayer, gives you 1 million full, and you actually need that 1 million full for another achievement in this event, which I'll get to in a second. And then we have something very cool, the Awakenings for Lenneth and Silmeria, the first 2 Valkyrie Profile characters that we got, and their banner is actually back, so if you want them, you can pull for them. So, let's take a look at their Awakenings, shall we? So we have Lenneth. She increases attack for the entire party by 40% and increases attack damage taken for the enemies by 15% when they're silenced. She also increases rush mode damage by 20% for the party and nullifies their chance of getting silenced. She also adds silence to all of her attacks, nullifies critical hits taken during charge assaulting, and she can air dodge. She also reduces her AP cost by 50% during skill chain 3 or more, and she also increases her stats a bit more, which raises her attack to 3100, very high, and her defense up to 2100, that's also really good. Her rush mode now has a 4000 multiplier as opposed to the 3500 that it was previously, and she got a new attack, Leading Slash. Now, I would say that Lenneth is not too great, even now that she's fully awakened. That 40% attack buff is kind of subpar. She does increase attack damage by 15%, but it's reliant on silencing the enemy, and she only has a 15% chance of doing that, and then to top it off with like enemy resistances to it. So you won't be doing that very often, and on top of that, attack damage is also getting more and more common on certain characters, so 15% increase is just not going to cut it. The rush damage plus 20% is very nice, and that does buff her buffing up a bit better, I guess. But even that is not going to save that 40% attack up. She can air dodge now, so that's good. The nullifies critical hits during charge assaulting, that has its uses. And on top of that, she does have a good attack stat, but her attacks kind of suck, so she can't really do much in the way of damage, but overall she can be used. It's not like she is completely terrible, but yeah, not too great of an awakened character here. Now, Silmeria, on the other hand, is actually kind of decent now. She increases damage dealt by 30, 35, 40, or 45, depending on the hit count. Increases the hit count timer by 3 seconds, recovers 5% HP every 3 seconds, reduces her AP cost by 10%, 20%, 30% when the hit count is sitting at 50, 100, or 150, and she increases her attack stat and her HP stat. And she also has a 4000 rush multiplier, and her attack stat is sitting at 2800 now. So the first thing you'll notice is that her damage buff is kind of subpar, considering that you need to reach 200 hits before it's even like 45%, and we have Bright Maria, who can get up to 60% if you reach that 200 hits, so that kind of sucks. But she has other utilities, like increasing the hit counter by 3 seconds, which helps out mostly a lot of the slower characters. It also gives everybody a lot more room for error when it comes to actually building that hit count, which like indirectly also increases rush gain, so that's very cool. The AP or HP recovery for the entire party, that's also very nice, because that's still like a very rare buff, and you don't always get into a team with a healer, so that's good to have. The AP cost reduction increases her damage by a little bit, and it also allows her to build the hit count a bit better. And then the attack buff actually puts her attack stat up to a very good number. On top of that, her attacks, her battle skills, are also very good. Most of them, at least. I think Wave Motion... No, Volcanic Volley is the bad one, but the other ones are very good. So her damage output is also very decent. Her hit count building is also very decent. And then her rush has a 4000 multiplier, which also makes it very powerful. So Lenneth actually got the short end of the stick here, whereas Silmeria is actually really decent as an awoken character. So if you want to awaken one of them, personally I would go with Silmeria. And speaking of awakening, for the first time, they introduce event achievements that give you awakening chips. And you can see that they have a bunch of gamma awakening chips too, 10 in total of both colors. So you don't have to mess around with deep space anymore. Amazing. But you can see that at the bottom here, there's 5 missions that require you to complete Misery 3 Lizard, and 5 missions at the bottom here that require you to complete Misery 2 Gandar. They say clear the mission by 4:30, 1 a.m. PT. I'm pretty sure they mean that's when they introduce that mission, so don't worry about these missions right now. Instead, focus on all of these. None of these should be too difficult, and the only ones that you really have to focus on are the ones with the Gamma Awakening chips. So all of the other ones are just a nice addition. Alright, I think that about does it for this. Now, one more thing about the Awakening achievements. Even if you're not planning on awakening Silmeria or Lenneth, make sure you at least pick up the Gamma chips, because you might want to awaken an attacker or sharpshooter later down the line, and getting those Gamma chips from deep space is a huge pain, so you can easily pick them up now. But let's take a look at Freya. She imbues her own attacks with light. She increases attack by 20% and int by 20% for the entire party, attack by 35% when the allies are standing at close range, and int by 40% when they're standing at long range, reduces her AP cost by 25% when she's standing at long range, and increases her rush mode damage by 30% at 150 hits or more, and she also increases her attack and int by 10%. And her rush has a 4000 int multiplier and reduces her AP cost by 40% and increases her critical hit chance by 30%, both for 20 seconds. And now here's the interesting part. She has 2 attacks that go off of her int stat and 2 attacks that go off of her attack stat. And the Victory Sword has a high hit count as well as low AP cost. Crimson Strike has a fire element, so that's also really cool. Comes out really quickly too. Smackdown is really fast and it's a close range attack, and Heavenly Punishment is also a close range attack and it does a lot of damage. And both her attack and int stats are sitting at a very respectable 3000. And they can go up even higher when you take her party buffs into account, but usually you have other characters in the party that can actually buff these stats with bigger numbers than 20% and 35 and 40%. But Freya is actually a very cool character. She fights well at both long range and close range, and she is an invoker, but she doesn't have cast time. She's just a really fast offensive character, so she's really fun to play. Unfortunately, she does use an orb, which means that she is locked to light right now, at least. Later on, we do unlock the abilities to give her different elements, but unfortunately, she can only use light now. But very fun character to play, and I guess if you like the character, I highly recommend you pull for her, because she is limited. And then we have Azure Lenneth, who is also kind of interesting. So she increases damage dealt by 20% and increases AP recovery speed by 30% for the party, increases her attack stat by 10% when she uses Starlight Fang, reduces her AP cost by 30% during Skill Chain 3, and she increases the damage enemies take by 30% when she uses Killing Thorn. And her rush, Skyrim Nibelung Valesti, increases the elemental damage of the entire party by 50%, and it has a 3500% multiplier, and all of her battle skills have some really good hit counts to them, seeing as how she is a sharpshooter. And Starlight Fang increases her attack stat, Killing Thorn increases damage enemies take, Homing Falcons is a very fast attack, similar to Rapacious Sparrows. Cinder Cone Collision is not that great, unfortunately, but apparently Killing Thorn is also a very powerful attack DPS wise, so that kind of makes her very powerful. And her attack stat is sitting at 2500, which is kind of low, but like I said, Killing Thorn makes up for that because it's just really powerful. So she looks like a weird sharpshooter because she doesn't really buff damage by that much, only 20%, and usually that gets overwritten by any other sharpshooter in the game, I think. But she does have the damage taken plus 30% when she uses Killing Thorn, and that's actually a unique buff, so it stacks with other damage buffs, which means that if you're running her alongside like Awakened Maria or something, you can even reach like plus 80% damage on the enemy. You have to apply it with Killing Thorn, which means that you can't really use her on auto because the AI, I imagine the AI is not going to use Killing Thorn that often, so that kind of sucks. But she is very interesting because of that debuff. She's got good damage output, and she is a very nice addition to our cast of characters. So, both of these characters are really cool, I think at least. Freya with her really cool playstyle, and Azure Lenneth with her debuff. So, if you are a Valkyrie Profile fan and you want to use them, I highly recommend you pull, because like I said, they are limited. And now, lastly, let's take a look at the weapons. So, for the original Valkyrie Profile banner, we have the Shiny Rupture 2 and the Slayer of Divine Beings 2. The Slayer of Divine Beings 2 is not too bad, but like I said, Claim Soloise is in the shop, so you can easily get that one. And the Shiny Rupture 2 is just a complete insult to every single bow user in the game. So I don't recommend you pull on this, like under no circumstance. But now for the actual good weapons, we have the Divine Elfin Bow, which imbues your attacks with light, increases light damage dealt by 20%, gives you 10% life steal, and reduces the attack damage you take. This thing is kind of the bow to have for... wait, yeah, for bow users right now, because it has the light imbuement, which is really cool. Increases light damage, which even further increases your damage output. The 10% lifesteal allows you to heal yourself on command. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure that most bow users would rather stand still to recover AP instead of using normal attacks. So most of the time you're not going to be using your normal attacks that much, but you could do it if you want to heal yourself. So this is a really good bow to have. And then we also have the Ether Laser. It increases light damage dealt by 40% and all non-light elemental damage by 20%, increases in by 5%, and at max limit break you unlock the last factor, which increases in damage dealt by 10% when you're standing at long range. So this orb is meant to be used on Freya because she has that elemental imbuement, so her damage goes up by 40%. Very cool. It increases her instat even further, which means that, yeah, again, her damage output goes up, and if you somehow manage to max limit break it, her int damage goes up even further. So if you're planning on running Freya, this is a very good orb to have, and even if you're not planning on running Freya and you just want it as like a normal orb, you could use it because it does have 20% non-light elemental damage up, so it works for other orb users as well. It also increases their instat and in damage, so a very cool orb to have for basically any orb user. And then we have the Dainsluff, which increases damage dealt to divinities by 40% and humanoids by 30%, increases normal attack AP recovery by 100%, and at limit break 3 you unlock the attack damage dealt plus 15%. So this is just a better version of the Vaneslay. I think the only thing it does better is 10% more damage to humanoids, and it has the normal attack AP recovery. But it works for characters that imbue their own attacks with an element like 2B or Fate or even Rhotic. So if you're running any of those characters, then this is definitely a very good sword, but I wouldn't pull specifically for this because it doesn't really have much versatility outside of those characters. Alright, and that does it for the update. Looks like we have a lot of new stuff to do, and this is only chapter 1, so can't wait to see what's going to happen next month, because it's probably going to be even more farming that we have to do. Oh no, but I guess that about does it for this video, so I guess I'll see you guys next time. Peace!